Hello YouTube and welcome to my video. Today I'm comparing what are maybe the two most famous watches in the world, which are the Rolex Submariner and the Omega Seamaster 300. So quick disclaimer, these are both my watches. I've had the Omega Seamaster for about a year now and I love it, and I've had the Submariner for about a couple of months now, and I equally love it for different reasons though. And remember that I'm comparing the vintage references of these watches. The Rolex is a 14060 from around 1995-1996, and the Seamaster is the reference 2131.80 from around 1993. So to compare these two watches in the most fair way, I've put together a series of criteria going from the more objective to the more subjective. The Seamaster gets an 8 and the Submariner a 9. So the Seamaster has the 1809 movement, and this was later replaced in 1996 with the 1120 movement. This has the base movement ETA 2892, which has been heavily modified by ETA especially for Omega, and it was just made for them. So it takes the jewels from 21 in the basic 2892 to 23 in the 1120, and of course gives it the cost certification. The power reserve is 45 hours. The Rolex has the caliber 3000, which was introduced in 1977 and was used by Rolex up to 2001. And surprisingly for Rolex, this is a non-COSC movement. Even though it is capable of COSC accuracy, it is not certified by Rolex, at least not this version. So even though it's not a COSC, why does it get a 9 when the Seamaster, which is COSC, gets an 8? Well, it's an in-house movement, and at least for me it runs a little bit better than the one on the Seamaster 300. Don't take me wrong, the 2892 is a marvelous movement, which runs really well for me, but it's not in-house, it doesn't have the same prestige, let's say. So the Seamaster gets an 8, and the Submariner gets a 9. Why? Well, the Seamaster, it's just not the same quality as the Rolex, with the glossy dial, white gold numerals. It's just on a different level. The case finish. Here, the situation is reversed. The Seamaster, to me, has a much better case finish. I'll try and put some close shots, but with the bevel, with the brushing, it just feels better, looks better, I believe. The Submariner, well, of course it's top quality, especially for the time. The brushing is, I wouldn't say impeccable, it's good. The discrete bevel, the sides of lugs, the polishing is pretty high quality. So there you go, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel the same, it doesn't feel as good as the Omega, even though many may not agree, but this is my opinion again. Okay, so the Seamaster gets a 10 and the Submariner gets a 7. I think I need to explain these, of course. So the bracelet of the Seamaster at the time was actually amazing. You can feel the heft of the bracelet, and it's very secure around your wrist. And it even has a nice diver extension. Excuse me. A really nice diver extension, which is here. Which is integrated in the bracelet flawlessly. And the clasp, it's just sturdy, very sturdy, very well finished. It's a luxury product, and you can feel that when you close it. It snaps with confidence. The bracelet just feels quality. As for the Submariner, you just pick up the watch and you can feel that it's not the same at all. I mean, the 904L steel and the brushing of the bracelet is beautifully done, but the heft, it just feels cheap. If you hear that. So it's just a fold-over clasp. It does have direct extension, which is here, but you know, you're afraid it's gonna break, even though it looks good. What you can say about the bracelet is that it looks good, but it doesn't feel good. It's just not hefty, not secure, and this was, I mean, it's not up to the Submariner. This was the case with all Rolexes of the time and all of the watches of the time. That is why the Seamaster gets a 10 as well, because for the time it was a revolution, this bracelet. So these brought the game up in terms of quality of bracelets. And for that, Omega deserves a lot of credit. So both brands have amazing achievements. If you can only think about Rolex, well, they start back in 1927 with Mercedes glides crossing the Channel. Then you have to go to Edmund Hillary, Sir Edmund Hillary in 1953, being the first person to climb the Everest. And then with the military following, with the Ministry of Defense in the 1950s and 70s, choosing the Submariner, the Milsub, the famous Milsub, personalities like Paul Newman, for example, wearing the Daytona. Well, the list goes on. I mean, Rolex is just amazing with technical feats, and so is Omega. I mean, Omega have done so many important things. They were founded back in 1948, over 50 years before Rolex. And for Omega, you just have to look at their military heritage. You just have to remember that during World War II, about 110,000 Omega watches were delivered to the Ministry of Defense. Watches that were worn by the Royal Air Force pilots, and then watches that were worn by the infantry, especially the CK2444, which was part of the Dirty Dozen. And then again, back in the 60s, the British Ministry of Defense chose the Seamaster 300, reference, I believe it was the ST165 024. So many amazing feats that Omega have done to be this prestigious. I mean, a 9 is a very high grade. However, even though the brands were, I believe, according to me, as prestigious, I just believe that Rolex have, at least lately, managed their brand much better. Today, Rolex is one of the world's strongest brands, and that is why they can charge the prices that they can charge today. If there is a model, for example, today, as of today, end of 2018, Rolex sports watches are nowhere to be found at 80s, and they're commanding, I mean, huge premiums on the internet, way above retail prices. The most special part of a vintage watch is the collectability aspect. Will it pick up value? So regarding these two models, the collectability, according to me, is, well, just a 7 for the Seamaster 300 for this version. For the Rolex Submariner, it has a 9. Let's start by the Submariner. Why a 9? Well, I think it's unarguable that the Submariner is an extremely collectible piece. The Submariner was first introduced in 1953 with reference 6204. Why did I choose myself this version? I chose it for the cleaner dial, just 2 lines of text instead of the 4 that you get in the usual version. As for the Seamaster 300, I think I need to explain this very harsh grade of 7 for such a legendary watch. There is a big paradox here in the fact that even though this watch is very popular and it has a big following, well, it's not very appreciated, or it hasn't appreciated yet in the second-hand market. For example, one of these, a Submariner, any Submariner in good condition, will cost upward of $5,000 today. As the Omega, the Seamaster 300 in great condition, even with box and papers, everything, will cost, I mean, I saw one going for 1,500 euros, even less, 1,300 euros. They both get a 9 because they are very aesthetically pleasing watches. The Submariner is the most enduring design in the watch world. If you see this reference, especially this one with no date, you can see that it's very comparable to the first references, and you can really see it as a Submariner. It hasn't changed that much in over 50 years. That is testament to a good design and to nice aesthetics. As for the Seamaster, I myself think it's a very nice looking watch, with the wave pattern, with the very interesting beveling, the different surfaces, even that 10 o'clock crown that not a lot of people like, but that has become so iconic. I mean, it's an iconic design as well. Even the bracelet that a lot of people hate, I believe it's a very nice design that shows a lot of dedication on Omega's part. And this watch, it has a lot of personality, you have to give it that. In the aesthetics department, for very different reasons, both these watches get the same very high grade of 9. The Seamaster gets a 9, and the Submariner gets a 7. Let me explain myself with the Submariner. When you're wearing a Rolex watch, you have to be careful. Not only of thieves, of course, but of the image you're projecting to other people. When you're wearing a Submariner, you can project an image of a pretentious person. Us in the watch world, it's not like that, of course. I mean, we do take these watches for what they are, for very special pieces of amazing craftsmanship. As for the Omega Seamaster, well, this doesn't come off at all like that. At least it projects a positive image, I believe, of somebody who's outdoorsy and who is, in general, an active person, who has very good taste, of course. So, let's see the total. And it's a win for the Seamaster. Well, just barely wins by 1 point, but it's a win for the Seamaster, 69 to 68. Is that deserved? Well, it depends on you, basically. It depends on what you feel is more important for you. If prestige is more important, of course Submariner is going to win. If collectability is more important, again, the Submariner wins. If the bracelet, the case finish, the cool factor is more important, I believe the Omega Seamaster is the way for you. So this has been a review of these two very legendary watches. Please leave your comments, tell me what you think. So thank you, bye.